Hello, and welcome to the first of a series of interviews where I'll be talking with people working at the cutting edge of AI. My guest today is Sasha Sheng. Sasha and I had a great conversation, and I can't wait to share it with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sasha. I'm the founder and executive director of this foundation called AI Engineer Foundation. The foundation's goal is to encourage collaboration and decrease unnecessary competition. So what I mean by that is, as an engineer, we've all seen the same thing being duplicated in multiple libraries that essentially does the same thing, but with different interfaces. And so the foundation's goal is to create a horizontal layer of service that each library can call into to reduce redundancy. And so if you were to think of back in the days, HTTP or TCP/IP, these are type of network transport layer protocols that's currently already developed for you, so you don't have to think about it when you create new websites. This is what we try to do. Right now in the emerging AI engineering field, we see multiple startups writing their own verticalized solution. And we think that a lot of it could be abstracted away and be shared common infrastructure. So AI Engineer Foundation is a nonprofit, and it's neutral multi-company standards body to help you do your task better. And we have a growing AI engineer community on our Discord. We record our weekly meetings on YouTube, so you're welcome to take a look. And then we have Twitter and LinkedIn presence as well.
So the topic for this conversation was defining AI agents. So I think that's a really good place to start. How do you define an AI agent?
So there are lots of different ways that people define. Personally, I see AI agent as a piece of software that thinks for itself, that can execute tasks for the users. The think for itself is calling the large language model side, and then that executes task is more on executing, making API calls, etc.
Maybe we could talk about contrasts. Could you give me an example of something that you would consider an AI agent and then something that you wouldn't?
To be honest, this is a question that I was kind of debating by myself as well. Generally, the question here is thinking a task, right? If thinking is a task, then ChatGPT is an agent because ChatGPT thinks and then talks back. This is something I'm unsure, but things are not an agent. It's you writing software like to do. Let's say you want to get a restaurant reservation, you call the Open Table API, and you write this piece of software yourself. This is not an agent. This is a piece of software that does what you asked it to do. An agent would be a piece of software you say, make a reservation to the restaurant, that as an input, and the agent executes the task. That would be an agent, right? So that's the difference.
So maybe we can talk about your journey towards this. How did you get into the field of AI specifically?
So I really got into the field of AI about like 6-7 years ago, when I was working as a software engineer at Facebook at the time, and I was on newsfeed. So I started taking a lot of like machine learning classes online through mostly Coursera, and went through engineering fundamental AI, and really enjoyed the lessons and the courses. I found it super interesting, and so embarked on the AI journey ever since. I ran a community called the Deep Learning Group back in 2017 to 2019-ish. We run weekly paper reading groups where we get together and read papers all the way from classical papers from like Lynette all the way to the most recent. At the time, it was that at the time I believe like Transformer just came out. So going from vision to language, etc. And then it was through that period that I got to work with AI more in my normal day job. I switched to the newsfeed backend, worked on ranking for a bit, and then joined the AI org working on experiences. And then from that point on, I moved to work on AI research. I was on the multimodal team, and I was fortunate enough to write 2 papers. Both were accepted in Nearterm and ECCV. Through that period, I realized I'm much more of an engineer than researcher. So I decided that I want to come out, be more in engineering and build product. And so I was the first software engineer on the generative AI team within Meta. Then since I left, then kind of more or less independent, wanting to do my own thing. And this opportunity came about, and I figured since I've been benefiting from open source for so many years, might as well give back. And so this is, yeah, where my journey is.
Yeah, that's great. I like that you decided to do something to contribute to not just learning from the resources that are available, but you're actually putting something out there that other people will hopefully be able to use as well.
Yeah.
Did you have any like moments where something really clicked, or you had a like, wow, this is something really fascinating to me?
Yeah, so personally, here's my view, right? Like, I think a lot of people, so AGI is like a commonly talked about concept in Silicon Valley, and it's kind of like too hyped up, I would say. My personal view of AGI is not like a binary thing. It's not whether we're there. It's a scale. It's like how much do we have that could be called AGI? And personally, I think the number one limiting factor of us getting to AGI, getting to like a more mature AGI, is evaluation. I think what we need is really a data set or like a collection of data sets that is like so holistic that programs can learn from and know what kind of ground truth performance is and can self improve. So, in other words, self heal. A lot of people might think that coding agents, will replace software engineer. Essentially, will replace creation of all software. And I'm personally very excited about it. Being an engineer, I think it like essentially decentralizes the skill of software engineer and it gives people power. And so now it's just not only software engineer can create software, like other people can create software too. And that would be a really wonderful thing. For me, like I never really considered we would have a machine that can do all tasks the way that human can until I thought of it as a self-improving. The bottleneck is the data sets. It's kind of like this realization that I had a couple months ago.
This is not a question I prepared, but like this idea of like self-healing, it kind of touches into something that my original topic was about, which is to what extent are the current AI agents out there actually autonomous? Like how much do they actually improve without intervention? And when they do change, how much of it is actually an improvement versus just some kind of change? And maybe how would we even measure that?
I think right now the agents that I've seen doesn't work yet, and it requires quite a bit of tuning to make it work. And a little bit of it is in the language. It's a little bit of it's in interface. It's like when I tell you things, there's so much that's lost in the language, right?
Mhm.
Like you cannot see exactly what I'm thinking and like what my context is. And so it's a little bit of it's just really understanding, like this is not very many agents are doing this, but really understanding where the user is coming from, and then not just take their words by their words, kind of exaggerate what they are saying with their context, with what you think their context is. And none of the agents that I've seen are doing that. Not only that, but also just like memory storage is still a very not solved piece. How do we keep track of long and short term memory? And so I think it's quite far away. And to your question of how do we evaluate it, I think AutoGPT has done a really good job. They created a benchmark data set that is essentially the first step of how to evaluate an agent. But going forward, I can see that with other things like web navigation as a task, we would need multimodal type of inputs as well. So I feel like the evaluation phase is quite new and not paid enough attention to.
Are there other elements that you've maybe in your experience found have a large impact on the effectiveness of an agent that make it work better or have more consistent outcomes or get stuck less?
I think like honestly, one thing that I keep thinking about is in the dev tooling space is really just to understand how agent is performing, kind of like measuring. How do you even measure an agent? Catching cases where it's failing and improving on that. And so I think in the next couple of months, we're going to see more startups in working in this space.
That's a great lead into my another question I wanted to ask is how far do you think we are on the path to a self-improving AI, whether that's an agent type system or something else?
I think the bottleneck is data set. And whenever it comes down to data set, it's really, really tough. Data set take a long time to collect. And I'm also pretty sure that like this is why like an AI engineer foundation I think is really important, because like the data sets that's collected right now, we do have data set, but it's just centralized in each company. It's kept as intellectual property. And so that's something that I've been thinking a lot about, is really how to get humanity to work together to donate the data set to our foundation, to create this type of like format that, you know, will help other companies evaluate their agents.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. It makes me think that, for example, if a centralized or a private company went out of business and took their data set with them, you could lose a lot of progress. That if you could get people to commit to open source from the beginning, then that kind of risk is eliminated. And in the same way that you were talking at the beginning about standards like HTTP, like by making that accessible to everyone, it doesn't just like atrophy with time.
System.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you already kind of answered whether you think anyone's created a truly autonomous agent, which it sounds like probably no.
Yeah.
So elements missing would be this holistic data set, a better method of evaluation. Anything else? What do you think we'll have to get there?
I think those are the two main things that I can think of. I think right now, like most of the task, like truly autonomous, is also like a little bit about modality as well. And hopefully next Monday we'll see OpenAI Dev Day. They will announce multimodal API calls. But right now, I think these are the two. Like there may be more, but with the dev tool that is going to help us understand how the agent is performing, it will give us more insight on where the problem is.
Any near-term predictions for big changes in this space, particularly with agents?
No, not that I can think of.
Yeah, it's really difficult. We could return a little bit to the AI Engineer Foundation. Did they put together or sponsor the summit?
Yeah, so we are actually a separate entity from the summit, but we work very closely with each other. And we are both under the AI Engineer brand.
Okay.
So Sean, who runs the summit, is actually one of our advisors.
So those are my prepared questions. I wrote a couple of notes about things that I wanted to just ask you about. When I was doing some preparatory reading, I came across like John McCarthy's idea of the frontier paradox. Are you familiar with this idea? That like
No, can you talk about
that when something becomes sufficiently advanced, we stop calling it artificial intelligence. Like computer vision was not a solved problem, and now it's something every phone does. So when it comes to like AI agents, do you think we're going to have this same kind of moving of it, where this we'll stop considering this way of interacting with the computer and artificial intelligence, and maybe it'll just become the way that we use computers?
Yeah, I think so. I like this framing. I think it's gonna be more like an assistant, and then you would just imagine that your assistant just works.
Yeah. Similar to what you were saying about like when I asked about the difference, you pointed out like when an engineer writes software, it's a set of instructions and it follows it. Making the distinction between what an agent would do, there's still the providing of the instructions, but there's this autonomous aspect to it. I can imagine that maybe in the future we just expect that level of autonomy from the human computer interface. And
Yep. Yeah. So the difference between a piece of software versus an agent is an agent comes up with their own piece of software to run. So
yeah,
that's the main difference.
when all this first started really taking off for me, it made me wonder, like, what does it even mean for an agent or a program to think? Do I need to be able to look at it and observe the process and understand it as a human? Or could we say that thinking is something that we can't exactly describe when an agent does it?
I mean, like, we can't describe the way humans think either.
Yeah, that's true.
Or like, I mean, we can describe to like the neuroscience level, but same way we can describe to the computer machine learning level, right? So that's why I say humans think and machines think too. And I don't draw any big differences other than like the energy providing mechanism. Humans use chemical energy, machines use electricity.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. We can approach a level of description when we talk about human thinking, but there's still something incomplete about that.
Yeah.
So what's next with the foundation? What's next for you?
So we're getting more projects kind of submitted to us, which is awesome. And keeping our development energy on agent protocol and model metadata central are very important. And we are going forward collaborating with Postman, collaborating with LangChain, collaborating with Llama Index, all good things coming for us. And at the same time, we're exploring potential collaboration with the Linux Foundation. And this Linux Foundation has been around for the last 30 years, and it's a hugely successful foundation. And our foundation is actually hugely inspired by CNCF, Cloud Native Foundation. And same with KubeCon is the AI Engineer Summit version of CNCF. So that's kind of, we're going through the process and figuring out what makes sense. And not only that, but also we are creating a set of courses online that we are going to publish and get more software engineers to be interested in AI, working with AI and things like that.
Cool. If you wanted to put out a call for like collaborations, like what would you love to see people submitting to you or the foundation?
We would like to see a project that you see once donated to the foundation would benefit other AI engineers, other companies. And if it's a tooling project you don't particularly want to maintain, you can also consider donating to us. We'll help you set up a governance structure on the project, run weekly meetings, and provide some development lift as well as marketing.
Cool. I'd love to know, is there anything that you would consider like essential reading or listening, something that you'd want to recommend for people who are interested in this topic and maybe are looking for something to check out?
So I would say I haven't really put up any specific blog post yet, but I would check out AI Engineer Summit YouTube video, and over there we announced the AI Engineer Foundation. So if you kind of go through that day one, I believe they have the AI Engineer Foundation announcement. So check it out. And then I'm currently actively working on announcement with Linux Foundation. So that will be coming out soon.
Where can people keep up with you?
Yeah, so the website is aie.foundation. And you can join our Discord. We have a community there. Follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. All of the links that I mentioned is on our website, aie.foundation.
Perfect.
I'm on Twitter. Personally, I'm on Twitter as well as HackGoofer, on all social media as HackGoofer.
Perfect.